Welcome back to another mind-blowing episode of the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. My name is Aaron, and I'm joined by my co-host and cousin, Landon.
Hello and good day.
How we doing, man?
Good. Good. I'm doing well. Glad to be back here. Yeah. Feel like I've been in outer space,
No,
hundreds
it
of
was
years
Iowa.
into the future. Oh, right. It was Iowa. Sorry. Oh, no, it's still kind of like it's otherworldly because it's such a different experience. My niece graduated high school, which of course I completely still see her as that 2-year old. Uh
Right.
yeah.
She's supposed to still be a child. This is I'm not prepared. Like I don't have kids of my own, so I'm living vicariously through you and your sister. But like I'm not prepared for your kids to age out of childhood yet. Uh, yeah, it's weird.
Nor nor am I. Though, I think I think the thing that probably gets me is I remember we would play the Nintendo Wii as a family, like bowling or, the tennis. And tennis, we'd say, all right, game point. And she would say, wah beat, wah beat. And so, the joke was always, it was just hilarious because we'd say, game point. She'd go, wah beat. And so I I I yelled out during her graduation Wabit. And
Nice.
I don't think anyone really understood what it meant,
No one
but
got it.
I'd represent my wife there, who always yells out at any event, really. Hopefully in good things, but normally. But yes, I did that.
Excellent.
What did you do this weekend?
A lot of writing.
Oh,
Not a whole lot else. Yeah, my car is kind of on the fritz right now.
no.
Um, got some issues. Not sure what the problem is. Something electronic. I'm hoping it's not something expensive like the alternator.
Mm.
But I've got a bad feeling about it. I think tomorrow. I'm actually working from home tomorrow, so I think I'm going to take some time at some point to go
Got
drive
a
the car
feeling about
around,
this.
see if I can survive getting it over to Advance or AutoZone or someplace, let them test
Yeah,
it out. But it has not been exciting. It's been but I'm an introvert, so if I
there
don't
you
have a
go.
car, that means I don't have an excuse to leave the apartment. And me and the dog, we just hang out, man. We're just
Yep,
throwing the ball down the hallway. It's
there
fun.
you go, crypto.
We make our own fun.
We love you, crypto. Well, talking about animals that are intelligent, let's get into what we're, here for.
All right, Landon, today we are diving into one of the all-time sci-fi classics, Planet of the Apes. This is the 1968 version, with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes having been released so recently. Our good friend of the show, Noah, has asked us to take a look back at this franchise. Now, in his mind, he's on the younger side. We've discussed this before. So he may have, when he asked us to take a look at the Planet of the Apes franchise, he may have just been thinking about the modern reboot, like the James Franco Rise of the Planet of the Apes and then War of the Planet of the Apes, all those, which are good. And we can get to those,
We will.
but we thought, hey, let's go to the original. Let's go back to what started it all. So we are talking about the Charlton Heston starring Planet of the Apes, 1968. This is the one with all of the crazy makeup and none of that CGI stuff. This isn't Andy Serkis wearing some kind of mocap suit and doing a
No,
voiceover for Caesar. This is
no.
Roddy McDowell in like a mouthpiece that barely moves. All right, it's good stuff. I mean, it's cheesy, yes, but you gotta look at the time, and man, this was a big advancement in movie makeup and design. Um, all right, so I remember watching this movie over and over again as a kid. It would come on TBS like all the
It
time.
it did. That's true. It came
So
on a lot.
yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask. What are your early memories of watching this movie?
Um, so I didn't. I think I'd seen a few things of Charlton Heston. Of course, like the Ten Commandments. but I also remember seeing him in some movie like The Fiery Inferno or something like that, some movie where he was in a building that was on fire or something like that. And at the time when this came out, or when not when this came out, but when I'd first seen it, I was probably in the 10-ish, 12-ish age. And I thought it was an awesome movie. I mean, I thought it was really cool, and I thought it was like, um, I mean, just we didn't have CGI like that back then, right? So when you're seeing people dressed up like the monkeys and their mouths are moving with like this stuff, it's like looks like real. I just thought it was really cool. I've always been a big fan of it, and the ending is crazy.
Yeah.
Just absolutely like what? I mean, so you can only feel it one
Spoiler
time.
alert for like a 50-year-old movie, but excuse me, 60-year-old movie.
I think one of the things that there are a few disturbing things. So when aside from the fact that there's a character that's named Landon, in the
Oh yeah, he doesn't make it, man.
yeah, well, he's lobotomized, right? There are a
Yeah,
few things
you
in
cut his
scenes,
brain.
yeah, there's like things in that are a little hard for like a 10-12-year-old, right?
Yeah.
There's some aspects of this, not to mention just the idea of enslavement, the caste system. There's just levels here of hierarchy, and things that are unfair that just I think as a kid you watch it like it's otherworldly, but then
Hmm.
as you get older and you watch it as an adult, you go, "Ooh, this actually in many ways, even to the very end, it's a cautionary tale." You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is very poignant. And you look at the time in which this was made, it's the the height of the Cold War. Where you've got, let's say this is 68, so the Cuban Missile Crisis was just 5 years earlier than this, or 6 years earlier.
Yeah,
And that's the closest at that point in like the closest in human history that we've come to actually destroying ourselves.
right.
And so you come to the end of this movie, and the whole time, Charlton Heston has believed he's on another planet where humans have evolved as the primitives and apes have evolved as the highest form of intelligence on the planet.
Right.
uh but then in the end, he's separated from everything else, and as he's riding along the shore, he realizes he's home, because what do we see? We see the broken Statue of Liberty washed up uh, on the beach, and he realizes he was home the whole time. And at some point in their history, of course, he's 2,000 years ahead in the future, but at some point in human history, we must have actually pulled the trigger and destroyed ourselves. And it's very upsetting for him, obviously, to realize how far humanity fell.
It's interesting too because there's a flip-flop about the humans because there's still like the human race and they're just like stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just considered to be unintelligent, and there's this supposition that they are um just dumb. And here's the thing, like, you might be a listener and you might, as some of us grasp or have feelings about evolution versus intelligent design, there's things like you have to have I guess your own standards as far as stuff like this goes, because I look at it and I see the caution of society. I see the caution of how we view life, about how we view our advancement, or how we view our overall intelligence, and where we're at in the course of history. I feel like there's a humbling aspect of that. There is no doubt also this imposed, evolution, element in it. I bypass that just so we're on the same page. I don't have to play around with that or make this more than it is. I really stick to it as a societal conversation. I don't know how you feel, but that's kind of how I handle that for those that listen in and that wonder about that stuff.
So I was thinking one of the most important, I wasn't going to say important, memorable. One of the most memorable scenes I think is the trial where
Oh, yeah.
so you've got Dr. Zaius, who is basically the it feels he goes back and forth between he's not just like a scientific leader, but he's also their religious leader as well. And
Yeah.
so for this ape civilization, science and religion are very closely tied together. Um, and so, he's accusing Taylor of committing heresy for claiming that he comes from another planet. Um, and apparently, so these apes, as we come to learn from Dr. Zaius, they have a very rigid religious dogma. What did you think about like ape society as they depicted the way that they were handling the situation? Because you've got not just, are they, claiming that Taylor is committing heresy by saying he's from another planet, and just the fact that he's a talking human is bad enough. But they're coming after Zira and Cornelius as well,
Right.
for the things that they have discovered in their studies, and claiming that they're heretics as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunately this is just a repeat of actual history. You know what I mean? Of the way that science has been viewed, in many ways. There's there's almost like a question of rational thought versus religion and rules that have no backing or any sort of anything except for tradition and authority behind it. That's the challenge of a theocracy, which was what was being depicted here, is any of that. But you have people along in our history who were able to marry the two. You have Francis Bacon, who is a renowned, scientist in history, and who also was a person of faith. And you also have, many people in history who've been able to understand the value of a separation of church and state. Um, but you can, I mean, this was almost just a display of elements of our own history of where there's been abuses and a lack of reason or rational assessment of things in light of that,
Yeah.
you
I
have
yeah.
you have a definitely pro science and reason, you know, defense for the in this movie that's being portrayed. And that's not bad. It's a good thing. But
No,
it
yeah.
doesn't have to be one or the other as sometimes they make things out to be, right?
Right. And not to get political or religious here in, facing what we've sort of gone through in the last few years. But it really has, especially when in light of the pandemic, it feels like there was a lot of rhetoric behind, all right, do we trust science or do we trust God? And it's like, why do these things have to be separate? God gave us
Right.
minds to be able to discover things and to uh you know experiment through science. So these two things should not be mutually exclusive. That science and religion can get along hand in hand. I don't understand why it has to be one thing or the other. It's well, I can't remember who. I want to say it was Einstein, but I know and maybe it's one of those quotes that I've gotten wrong over the years, or it had no basis, no foundation in truth. But I feel like there was a quote from some like scientist that said the more he studies the universe, the more convinced he is that there is a grand design behind it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's sort of the way I've seen science, personally. And maybe that's because I see it through the lens of faith. And, you know, eh, there there are there are absolutely going to be aspects of of what we see in our world, physical evidence that does not mesh with what I consider to be scriptural truth as far as like, obviously I grew up as a Christian, so for me, scriptural truth comes from the Bible.
Right.
Um, and so there are going to be things that don't mesh one with the other, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they cancel each other out either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely true. And
so
I think anybody watching anything, whether it's this movie back then or anything these days, you have to you can't just watch a movie and not be aware of the implications. Whoever's making the movie has their own view of those things, and that's okay. You just
sure.
you have to be able to kind of flush out and see. That's why when I see something like this, I look and I say, here's what I take. I take out of here a good caution. It's a good tale. You know what I mean? And it's something to learn from, right?
Yeah. And action, the I think the takeaway from this movie, if nothing else, it's warning us to be careful with the technology we have and um figure out how to get along with each other instead of blow each other up.
Right.
Um because that was, it's funny that was the reason behind Taylor's wanting to get away from Earth in the first place. He felt that there had to be something else out there in this grand universe of ours that was better than humanity. He had faith that there was something better than what humanity had to offer. And so, when he gets to the end and discovers that humanity really did destroy themselves, um he just it's almost like he was proven right, that there was no hope for humanity, which is really sad, and again is one of those things that the folks who behind the scenes were making this movie, if they were trying to make some kind of statement, that was probably it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but what did you think about the different characters, the different I mean, I always liked Roddy McDowell, Cornelius.
Mhm.
I always thought he was a fun character. I think he's most notably the Planet of the Apes, character since he
Yeah,
lasts through more than the first two, right?
yeah, he is. So he actually isn't in the second one.
Oh, at
um
all. Oh, that's
no.
right. That's
Well,
right.
so Cornelius is in the second movie, but very briefly, and he's played by a different actor. I can't remember who plays him, but I think Roddy McDowell was sick, and so he wasn't able to come back.
Oh, because his wife,
Or
because the his wife was in it, right?
yeah, Zero was in it.
Zero
Zero and
was in it. Oh,
Cornelius are
right.
both in it, but it's just a different actor in the makeup.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, I cannot remember the actor who played him in the second one, but then of course he does come back for the rest of the sequels.
Yeah.
Um, which of course we will get to. I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but so today we're talking about Planet of the Apes. Our next episode, we're going to talk about the four sequels that came after it in this original series. If you are surprised by that number, so was I as a kid. But we'll get into that next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so all right, so we've talked about the iconic ending, the Statue of Liberty. Taylor, he's got his mute girlfriend Nova riding along. um and I remember, like, and I know we've mentioned the ending, but I remember just completely being shocked at the end, and because I remember the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
What's crazy is, you know you remember my dad. He was a sci-fi nut, right? Star Trek, Star Wars, like he loved all that stuff. Mom is the one who introduced me to this movie. Um, so she sat down. I'm pretty sure that she was watching it with me the first time I watched Planet of the Apes. And for her, it was one of those moments, like watching me see the ending for the first time would be like, me watching some kid who'd never seen Empire Strikes Back, finding out that Vader is Luke's father. It's just
Yeah.
like, What? That's the Statue of Liberty. How's that happen?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty shocking to me too. But you come to get used to shocking and gut-wrenching endings, as each movie goes on, I
Sure.
mean, actually just seeing this was actually tame, in all honesty, compared to the others. Just seeing like the Statue of Liberty, that's actually not too bad. Um, but at the time, I mean, my gosh, first time, whoa, you know.
I'm sure that was a that twist ending was thrown in at the last minute by Rod Serling, um, of Twilight Zone fame. For those of you who don't know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
he was one of the writers on this movie, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have that twist ending at the start, like when they were first fleshing out the story. But he added that at the end, and gosh, imagine if that hadn't been the ending. Like, what if we had just left it with him thinking he's on some other planet?
Yeah, then you wouldn't you I mean, that was the thing that makes all the other things happen
Yeah.
because it ties into well, yeah, it ties into a lot. So for the cycle to happen, and then we have to talk about that in the next one.
So like, and I don't know if you know this, but this is based on a book.
I saw that when I watched it again. I never noticed that before.
Yeah, so it's based on a French novel, and apparently in the novel, it is a different planet. The astronaut goes to a completely different planet that is populated by intelligent apes. Um, but then when he gets back to Earth, he lands in Paris, right in front of the Eiffel Tower, and police pull up and apes get out of the car. So apparently, in between the time that it took him to get back to Earth from their planet, they managed to beat him here and took over the world or something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
That's a weirder twist ending. I like the Statue of Liberty thing better.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
So all right, we got Planet of the Apes. It was a huge hit. Spawned four sequels, as we said, and we will talk about those next time. There was a TV series. There have been comic
Oh, right.
books. There have been two different reboots. There was the Tim Burton not so classic back in 2001, starring Mark Wahlberg, which I mean, yeah, it was a movie. And then there was the more recent trilogy, and well, really now it's a quadrilogy with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes out. Um, but you can look at the first three really as a trilogy that really wraps up because it tells the story of Caesar and his life and his leadership of this ape community. Gosh, so many movies. Who knows how much longer they're going to be able to spin out Planet of the Apes movies and really media of all kinds. It's not bad for this quirky little sci-fi flick that was, back in '68. So why do you think it's resonated so much with people and has become such an enduring franchise?
Well, everybody likes a good underdog, I mean, I think that or under ape. I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, there's aspects here that have to do with at some point some sort of regime or leadership or something that is over or abusing their power in some way, right? And then you have like the rational, reasonable, rebellion. You know what I mean? That's kind of going against it or just trying to escape oppression. And I think each of the movies has that, but you also have like and really more in the when you get to Caesar, you're seeing this pendulum shift of power. So I think what people appreciate is seeing a like a, a display of society that's not specifically displaying our society. Like you can talk about Nazis, that were trying to take over the world, or you can talk about like the the theocracy or the Spanish Inquisition. We all know that we all have our own things, but then you throw in a society of apes and their world, or even the rise of their rebellion, and before, and you're talking about something otherworld, something different. It gives people another vantage point
Right.
of this. That's what I think people are drawn to. It's the same old story of history, but you're seeing it in an unaltered view. You know what I mean? That's what I think.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good point. And that's something you can do with sci-fi that you can't do with any other genre. You
I
can,
think that's why people love Battlestar Galactica. I think that kind of stuff is what gets people, I want to see the struggle, the oppression, the overcoming, right?
yeah, yeah, you can do all kinds of things with alien societies that you don't want to do with, a human protagonist or antagonist in, whatever the case may be, because if you see someone who looks like you as the bad guy, that hurts. It's hurtful. But if you see the bad guy as this oppressive ape society, then it's like, oh, well, that's horrible. How can they do that?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
And we see that kind of thing with Star Trek all the time. They're constantly, you know, putting other societies, alien societies, under the microscope, but really, it's putting us under the microscope. They're just disguising it as
Yeah,
this other civilization. So, and again, that is one of the beautiful things about science fiction, is that it is able to, uh, you know, point the microscope back at us as a society, but we're not so quick to be offended by it because we may not recognize that it's us right away,
yeah,
until, you know a decent movie critic comes along and is like, yeah, that's exactly what they're saying.
right, right.
All right, so we're running low on time here. I mean, that's pretty much our look at Planet of the Apes, the original. Landon, any final thoughts before we head off into the future of four crazy sequels?
I think I'm ready to roll into the next ones.
All right, awesome. Let us know your thoughts and memories of this classic sci-fi film. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, go find it. It's on Disney Plus right now. In fact, all of the Planet of the Apes movies are on Disney Plus. I'm pretty sure, even the newest ones, save for Kingdom, since it's, just coming out in the theaters. Give it a shot, even if it's just the original one. It's definitely worth seeing. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Show and click that bell icon so you never miss a fascinating episode. And once again, have a great whatever it is wherever you are.
See ya.